And I just brought this up quickly just to kind of get you thinking about the acculturation process. And some people continue to isolate themselves, and some people wanted to be part of. And that's where the family conflicts sometimes come in. You see, the children want to be assimilated, but the parents wanted to have isolation or separation. So it is hard for within a family, within 3 generations, then you cannot help it but have conflicts and problems. And that will come to your office. So we need to understand where they are coming from. This is very general, and I'm not sure that I agree with that. You say Asians are less likely to employ direct coping strategy. Do you find that? Oh yeah, Laurie?
That's half of my work at the hospital on the crisis team.
Could you tell us a little bit about that?
The simplest of situations, they think they need a psychiatrist if they're upset about something. They just don't know how to cope with that, don't have much in the way of coping skills, a lot of people. Obviously not everyone, but it's like they panic about it, and their first line is to go to the emergency. That's where they end up. Did you talk to your family doctor? No, no, that never occurred to me to do that.
I've got 2 hands. Oh, okay.
I work in a youth justice system, and I find the kids similarly as well believe that, like with everything, instead of seeing their social worker or maybe for risk assessment that's done by the psychologist, the family is always insisting, oh, they need to see the psychiatrist. So in that way, it's like they feel they have to see somebody who can, well, I don't know if the psychiatrist is just the term that they feel that's the only person who can fix their situation, but usually they are not very accepting of having just seeing a counselor, a therapist, and a psychologist. They have to see somebody they feel is higher, to fix that. That could just be a talk issue.
So it's more, they like to see a doctor rather than a psychologist.
Right.
And therefore, so often, if you think they need a psychologist, you work through the doctor.
Right.
And if the doctor refers, they are more likely to go.
Yeah.
Otherwise, they like to stay home because they wanted to they say, well, okay, I can manage it, I don't need to go. And that was very hard. But Asians are coming out more now. And they also bring children is the reason they say, I come because of the children's problem. That's okay. Because when they open the door, then they are willing to open themselves. But you have to be trustworthy. You must create an environment that is safe for them. And okay, we have a lot to cover. Coping strategies are viewed as dysfunctional because of the use of coping as denial, withdrawal, avoiding confrontation, controlling feelings, having a, there's a lot of kind of a broad concept, but I think we were talking about individuals too. Yes, you have.
I was just going to say that we work in a very large multicultural post-secondary educational environment, and every year the faculty have training on cross-cultural issues because they invite students. At higher education, you have a different relationship with your faculty, first names, you can go to their office, and the faculty say that it is very difficult. They encourage the students to come see them. Let me know if you have a problem, we'll talk about it. And they notice that Asian students, don't do that. They don't see them in their office, they don't stop the faculty and say, oh, can we talk for a minute? They stay very much insular around that. They don't interact with the faculty as much.
Why? What makes them that way?
Because they're private, you know, they tend to just believe that families, that's what one kind shared with me, that families work things out together. You do it in a family, you don't need external people to come in, it's private, right? And if you can fix it, then I don't need to see a therapist.
They find all the outsiders are intrusive.
Right.
We know what we need,
Yeah.
and we need to be together.
Right.
Now, can you see what's the danger of that? Holly?
Yeah, I'm currently working with someone who she came in because they're having problems in their marriage and he's quite emotionally abusive and I'm seeing the escalation kind of go up in terms of, you know, just what he's doing in the relationship. And it was a big risk for her to come in and she wants him to get counseling.
Mm-hmm.
Because she's, you know, feeling some benefits there, but he's resistant, and so there's a real conflict because he's feeling, no, we don't need to air our concerns and all of our stuff to other people, and he wants to keep it private. But she's at a situation where if it escalates further, you know, it could very much end the relationship and move on, and how she views kind of possible shelter services or this sort of thing, because it's just so against her cultural belief system, yet she's recognizing that she does need the support. So it's a real conflict for her, you know, in terms of that. But I think it's, you know, very brave that she's reaching out.
That's pretty typical, isn't it?
Yeah.
We're not going to hang our dirty laundry outside.
Yeah.
Whatever we have, we deal within ourselves. So they shortchange themselves to get the help that they can, you know, resolve. But how would you deal with that? Yes.
Well, you had mentioned something about what are some of the issues that would arise. I guess one thing that came up for me was that oftentimes families who are going through difficult struggles, they hide the situation, and then there's a development of shame, because there's a certain amount of shame, and that they place that shame on themselves, and if that becomes part of their development, as opposed to dealing with those problems and learning that some of the things that they're going through is normal, and that they can grow out of that and heal.
Shame is
compassionate towards themselves.
big time. I have hands. Yes, Toby.
This piece is it's kind of going back to the previous slide, the diagram, and with the kind of concept that people have multiple different identities,
Mm-hmm.
and it's not just their heritage or their family origin background, and so the complexity of in that kind of circle of where you're going to be is, so for example, if we're talking about sexual or gender identity,
Mm-hmm.
the family isn't necessarily going to have that background or understanding. It's not a place that you necessarily go, and it depends what you're seeing as that kind of queer culture. Is that reflecting your also other cultural identity? And so I think it can be so much more complex than these different pieces, right?
Exactly.
And it's the complexity also in terms of power of some parts of your identity might be what you were describing as like the dominant culture, or that has more kind of systemic kind of power, and other parts that don't.
Mm-hmm.
And so it can be so, yeah, it just feels like it's a lot more kind of
Very, very much so. As we talk about how complex our human beings are, and with all these complex components and make into a society, can you imagine how many times more complex it gets? But there's part of us feel comfortable with certain things, and part of us not comfortable with others. But that's normal, right? If we understand ourselves, then we could understand our clients. And this is why if we won't dare to go to those closets and explain ourselves and kind of feeling comfortable with ourselves, then how can we help someone or even have insight into the closets of our clients. And this is why I thought this is a good way of talking together and explaining. It's so complex we cannot just draw a diagram and say, haha, this is it. But at least a framework is important. A framework will guide things into right places.